Our topic today in our webinar is how we can use financial information to help us, to guide us in understanding where there may be challenges in our client businesses. What are the issues for us to tackle? So which of the following indicators are you using already when you are advising your clients? You'll see there's another window opening there and you can vote on that. The poll is open now. So which of these are you using? You can choose all of those that you do. If you use all of them, you can choose all of them. Select all of them. But please select those that you're already doing. It gives us a good indication of how our audience in the webinar here today, how everyone participating is using financial information. So sales achieved, conversion rates in terms of leads, market and industry specific trends, top product sellers, trends in expenses, expense items of the business, capacity to utilize the assets that the business has, stock turnover, debtor age analysis, projected cash flow, and assets versus liability. There are, of course, a bit more, but we're only limited to 10 options. So let's see there. Everyone is using cash flow, it looks like, and sales too. So cash flow and sales are there in the lead. If we were at a racist now, we could have an interesting description of how market industry specific trends is now actually increasing as people are voting. But projected cash flows are way ahead, followed by sales achieved. So those seems to be the two that most people are using in indicating the health of the businesses they're working, looking at the cash flow and looking at the sales. And then an interesting one is that assets versus liabilities is, of course, a very important one, the solvency of the business, and that market and industry specific trends is scoring quite high. I would have guessed not so, but it looks like we are finding ways to actually following what is happening in the marketplace so that we can advise our clients better. Okay, so let's end that poll. If you want to vote quickly, just submit your choices there, and then we can end the poll. And you'll be able to see the results there that cash flow is king, as we know. And we're working with small businesses, so of course that's even more important than most business environments. Okay, so that's the poll. We can also share the results with you, which Carl has already done. And then we can move on to talking about this. And we've got two very insightful guests in the room that's going to participate in our panel discussion here today, Precious and Mvulane. So perhaps Precious and Tyronne, if I can ask that you switch your cameras on. We'll get to the other guests a bit later, the IBASA related stuff a bit later in the webinar. So there's Tyronne's got his camera on. I see Precious is signing in, so I'm not sure. By the way, I haven't introduced everyone in the room yet, including myself. So my name is Christoph Oosthuizen. I'm from the EPI and hosting the webinar series here. I also have my colleague Carl Venter from the EPI, who's the producer. So I'm not sure, Carl, if you just want to come in with the situation with Precious, are we able to bring her in to the webinar now?
Hi, Christoph. Precious is in the room. If she can maybe switch on a camera. We're still struggling to get a sound going.
Okay.
Precious, can you switch
so
on
we'll just change our order around. We had Precious as the first presenter and Tyronne as the second, but we'll do it the other way around. So thinking on our feet. And I see that Brian is in the room with us now too from KZN. So by the way, Tyronne Nell, the other panelist, the presenter today, is also from KZN. He's in fact sitting in Port Elizabeth, a real entrepreneur moving around serving the needs of his clients. Tyronne is director of SME Snapshot and has been very active in the field of providing financial support services to small businesses, including by empowering accounting practitioners to work better with small businesses. And he's mainly going to talk about SME Snapshot today, but he's got a whole decade or two, I'm not sure exactly how many years, Tyronne, that you've been actively supporting small businesses in understanding their financial information and other metrics that they can use to understand their business health. If you want to switch on your sound, we'll be able to.
There you go. Thank you, Christoph. Yes, you've covered that nicely. Been in this space and for some time now.
Yeah, so we're looking forward today specifically to learn from you how we can use financial information that's perhaps not in the income statement and balance sheet. Precious will cover many of those just now for us. But Tyronne, so I'm gonna hand over to you if you want to show us, sort of the magic that you've been able to identify as ways to help small business owners better through financial and other market-related information. And then Carl will be able to present for us the slides that you've nicely prepared to share that insights with us too. So by the way, just as a reminder for everyone attending today, you can anytime when you have a question, I see there's already one question posted, click the Q&A button for us to discuss. Ed, thanks for posting something there. And in the meantime, as the discussion continues, you can put your opinions or participate in the discussion in the text chat too as we proceed. It's allowed for us to talk and write at the same time. So Tyronne, if I can hand over to you. So Carl's opening the slides for us there. So what is SME Snapshot about, maybe firstly, and then, sort of what can we learn from your experience in helping small businesses to to identify first issues and then resolve them through financial information?
Fabulous, Christoph, thanks a lot. Welcome everybody. Thank you for making the time to actually attend. A little bit of, just to expand on the history with Christoph, I've started out buying companies, turning them around and then selling them. And obviously you want a quick turnaround, quick sale, get things on the move. So you're looking for what companies, what are the quick weak spots to fix and turn around. This led me into the accounting game because suddenly people wanted me to rather advise them. And I had to hire a whole bunch of accountants to now do the accounting part. And I ended up creating an accounting firm, which was not the objective, but it opened a new door, which sort of helped a lot, because what we found in the nearly 15 years of running an online accounting practice is that entrepreneurs want to learn, but too often for them, when you give them management accounts, it's just black numbers on a white page. It means absolutely nothing in their world. The question we continuously get asked, and I'm sure you guys probably get this as well, is how much tax am I going to pay? That's really what drives the actual entrepreneur. And hopefully I'm not going to be in trouble with SARS, which is obviously the least of their problems, because you only pay tax if you make a profit, and a lot of these guys generally are not in the first couple of years. So in looking at this, we took a step back. Because we've been in the cloud for a long time, since 2006 already, we thought, how can we change this? And that's how SME Snapshot was born. It was originally just a pivot table, and we looked at all the key indicators that VCs, incubators, accelerators, banks use to either fund SMEs, guide SMEs, coach SMEs, things like that. And this is what we ended up putting in place. So Snapshot does all the heavy lifting right from the start. And unfortunately, like anything, Precious will go over the details behind it. It all counts on good information. So providing your books are set up properly, your chart of accounts are in the right order, you actually understand your market, what you're chasing. And this is obviously where us advisors come in, because we generally have experience across multiple markets, multiple industries, and we can assist people with grouping elements into their cost of sales, and not everything sits in OPEX, and sort of things like that, splitting sales up into different product lines. It's not all lumped into one item. And from that, nice input of data gives you great output of information. And that is the key with all the sort of learnings we've had over the years with training entrepreneurs, guiding entrepreneurs. We've been very fortunate. The 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs failed in the first year. Sort of rule of thumb with us has actually been 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs make it in their first year. So we've been very fortunate by utilizing these systems that a lot of our startup clients actually are still around and are still trading very well and have grown nicely. So as I say, Snapshot goes a bit further. It takes the inputted data. It does currently sit on Xero. It's a direct API into Xero. So if your client's on Xero, it'll pull this information in automatically. If you're on one of the other accounting products like Sage, QuickBooks, we do have an import template that you can use while we're busy doing the actual API integrations. And as you can see on the screen, we measure net profit margins, we measure gross profits, and these are things that are very important to the entrepreneur. What are their margins? Is their gross profit large enough to cover their OPEX? A lot of people are not costing their products right, so they now don't have enough margin. So immediately what you see when you're looking at the dashboard is that the entrepreneur now has a picture. And as soon as the indicator turns red or the graph ends up sort of showing downward trends, the entrepreneur is going to phone you immediately and go, why? Ask you the question, why is that happening? What is the reason of it? And you can then obviously expand on that, and then it opens opportunities. The dialogue is coming from the entrepreneur. It's not you trying to drive the actual dialogue across to them. Okay, so that's just an overview of what the actual dashboard does. It measures cash flow. A lot of the startups are looking at, and the tech industry looking at burn rate, which obviously is how many days they'll survive if they no longer make sales, how quickly before they run out of money. So it tracks burn rate. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a graph. That's generally your income statement graph. The reason we put it, we don't worry about the reason we just show the income statement, so people can often look at the sales trends. Too often, entrepreneurs are unaware of the sales trends, or they're only looking at one element of the sales trends. So that's a good indicator for them to see where they're actually achieving their actual greater sales, and possibly where there's opportunities to grow further sales. So very, very quickly, you can outline those items. Left-hand side of the screen is their statutorial indicators, and it's quite scary to see. I'm sure you guys are seeing it as well. Too few entrepreneurs know when their VAT cycle is, when their annual returns are due with Sub-C. So the companies tend to be in deregistration or on the verge of actual deregistration. So this gives them a preemptive sort of indicator as to what's happening, where it's happening to, when things like tax clearances and BE certs are expiring, so they can actually prepare in advance. They're not suddenly caught out when they're doing a tender that they don't have the information at hand. Okay, so that gives you a good overview of the dashboard. Carl, if you can maybe just switch on to the next slide for me. Okay, here's a bit more detail. So definitely, as you see, here's now on the top left, that's the turnovers, cost of sales. You can start seeing how they interrelate to each other in terms of the actual company. So very quickly, you can move along and show the actual entrepreneur where and relationship changes. So as you now start adding more elements into cost of sales, because you're now changing their book, they'll see that their cost of sales margin will change. If you moving things that they had under cost of sales into OPEX, you'll see how that changes. Now the client can start getting a visual. And we found that the picture works a lot better than just the word on its own. Essentially, the dashboard will be a place for them to go to every day to have a look. Because we've learned over the years, there's three things that entrepreneurs know instinctively. Who owes them money, to whom do they owe money, and how much cash is in the bank. And that's essentially how they run their books. That is, in a very short sense, their actual management accounts that they run on. The other two slides on the right, we've just expanded the net profit and the gross profit margin tabs that were on the first screen. So you can see a historical sort of timeline of what's taking place. So the entrepreneur gets a real understanding of the history. So you can show them in real time how you've impacted their business, and they can go back and see, hey, this is what my margin did. It grew. We made these changes, and there's a visual effect immediately, and that really helps the actual entrepreneur. So it makes a big impact, and obviously for yourself, you can actually start to then measure the impact what's happening, and if the client is actually really paying attention, because there's nothing worse that we've seen is that often the client engages a coach, a mentor, and they expect you to run the business. So it's just, this way you can see if they're applying the knowledge that you're sharing with them. And then you can take the appropriate action, whether they really just sort of taking your advice, growing the company and things from there.
So Tyronne, how important is this visualization, you reckon, in terms of the audience, small business audience?
What we found is that because they're not generally accounting or FAE and things like that, they don't really sort of translate the black numbers on the white page in terms of the impact of their business. Strangely enough, the only clients we've come across that really have a better understanding tend to be the engineers. They tend to be a lot more detail orientated. They tend to have built their own graphs to measure certain things. They grasp it. But in terms of any of the other clients who don't have finance as a background and things like that, they sort of just gloss over it. They don't. It's almost like they don't absorb it, because it's not. This isn't a visual. It's just numbers on a page. So with this, it has a massive impact. But also, if any of these indicators turn negative, it notifies the entrepreneur and the coach. So now you can action it in real time. You can go in and have a look at it in real time, and you can see the picture immediately. It's not now but a whole bunch of numbers on an Excel sheet and trying to show them that, hey, look, it's changed over every week, where now you can visualize it. So it has an impact. It has a greater impact than just the numbers. That's how we found it.
Great. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No, it's fabulous.
But as people working with figures a lot, perhaps we fall into the trap of then expecting our customers, our clients, to also follow the lead, sort of, and get excited about the figures, as
Correct.
opposed to putting ourselves in their shoes and understand how to interpret information from their perspective.
And it does happen. We found that we tend to talk in terms of accounting, and they want to understand in terms of entrepreneurship, and those two understandings often clash. So definitely, the visualization helps.
Yeah. Okay, but I know you've got much more to offer in terms of other sources of information too.
Yes, we do. We do indeed. Andre, if you can just pop onto the last slide. So what we do is the key is to read widely, understand the industry, get your data from things like the JSE, Bloomberg, international trends, and not just from one source, because the client's books on their own is just a tiny little drop in the ocean in terms of the wider picture of what's happening in the industry. So although they might be doing well in their little sort of goldfish bowl, they're not necessarily going to be doing well in terms of the larger sea of entrepreneurship in their sector. So the more widely read you are, the more sources of data you have, the better you can advise the guys. So these are some of the things that we've tracked, and when we meet with clients, we start at the source, obviously sales. And we use very simple cheats instead of the entrepreneurs have to go and spend expensive money on CRMs and Salesforces and things like that. We use the accounting platform, so you can do quotes within your accounting platform. Keep it simple. Once you've done a long 10-page pitch to a client, whatever, just pop the quote, simple, this client, that amount of money, and pop it into your accounting system. If the client accepts and you convert, you can see what your conversion ratio is, because that'll give you a lot of indication in terms of how good your sales team are doing, what the feedback is from the client. You can go back on those quotes and go, why didn't we accept it? Did we not sound knowledgeable? Was our pricing out? What was the case? And that gives you incredible insights into your business. Too many people are too afraid to go back to the client and ask why they never got it, or flip the question, what do we have to do to get a yes from you? And that starts right at the beginning. So sales is one of those things. Sales cycles. When are you going to generate your sales? How are you actually preparing your business for this? Do you have to bring on new staff? Do you have to carry more stock? These are the whole things that lead you up to your different cycles. How does this impact on my cash flow? If I've got to carry more stock, who's going to cover the stock while it sits on the shelf? things like that. So again, leading from the front, going forward. Cost of sales. Are your products costed accurately? Do you know what makes up your costs? Is your margin high enough to cover your OPEX, your sales team, and things like that? So these are the sources of data, and you measure these things obviously individually, but they count across your entire company. Return on staff hired. So many entrepreneurs we've seen have hired a staff member, and then after the first 6 weeks realize they can't afford them, because it takes, generally we've seen 3 months to get a return on a staff member, because it's not just their salary, it's a laptop, it's maybe additional petrol if they're on the road, it's another desk, maybe you have to increase the size of your office. All of these things cost money. Have you thought about this in terms of your business, where it's going, what that costs, what the return will be, how quickly can you get the money back? So, these are little things that trip up the actual entrepreneurs. Again, with inventory, how often are you turning your inventory? Is it sitting on the shelf? Should you rather drop things and at cost rather? Can you add an additional product line that speaks to the existing products that you sell as an upsell? And what is this going to cost you? If the sales force are already doing it, for them to go and add another product, if you're just selling laptops, now you want to add a mouse, well, they're already there. So it shouldn't cost you anything more. But that's the cost that you should be looking at. Business expansion, locally, nationally, internationally. What are the additional costs here? Flights, co-working spaces, accommodation. These things are all tracked, and your finances show where this is going. And you can project these things, get the costs up front, put it into your books of account, into your cash flow planning. Adding partners, whether it's young blood, because we're getting a bit older, or whether it's BE partners, what's the impact while you're training them? That often kills your sales, because you take your eye off the ball to train them and get them up to speed. How does that work? Do you have enough funds in the bank to do so? Along with exits. You want to sell out now, but if you now want to sell out, you're losing interest in your business. Sales get impacted, or you draw more funds out. All these things impact on your business, your growth, and your numbers are showing this all the time. So just keep an eye on when you're talking to your clients, what their motivation and drivers are.
So Tyronne, sorry for interrupting again. So clearly, I know you referred to it earlier that you can use from your financial records, from your accounts, you can use information. But if you don't capture that information, like a quote, it's useless. So. But one can even go a step further in saying that if the capturing otherwise is not accurate, it's also useless. So maybe when Precious comes up, she can enlighten us a bit more about what it is that we can do to make sure that our clients are getting a bit more astute in capturing data into the accounting system as a source of information very astutely, so that we can actually interpret that information then confidently, knowing that it is leading to good analysis of where problems may be. Otherwise, we look at something that's it's irrelevant because its information is not accurate. But Absolutely. If I can ask you, before we get to Precious, sort of around external sources of information. So you refer to some, but if I would ask you, what are the 2 or so most important sources of external information that a business advisor should be keeping his or her eye on, so that they can identify trends and report that back to their clients and make that a meaningful way of assessing where there may be problems in the business or upcoming challenges from external that they need to account for?
Yeah, so myself and my team use 3 actual sources, sort of generally, and there are a few people within those sources, but the JSE is a nice source because it's visual, it's open, you can sort of see what's happening. There's a lot of data. You can just Google and get an idea of industries. We like the Bureau of Economic Research. They do a lot of sort of research papers in different sectors, in different industries, and on the actual economy itself, where the economy is moving. And then SARS puts out a lot of information in terms of who's paying tax by sector, by industry, how many SMEs or how many large companies, and that gives you, and that's real-time data as well. So SARS is tracking this based on your pay-as-you-earn, your VAT, your income tax, and things like that. So they put out a lot of data, and it's by sector, which is fabulous. It's by province. So you can actually see, you can advise your clients that maybe the Northern Cape is not for you. You know, you should move to KZN. The warm weather might help and grow your business. But that you can use the data to justify.
Yeah.
And that's what those are the three main items. But we tend to read very widely in terms of you know, just industry publications and stuff like that. But that'll be for me a good starting point. Just the overall sort of consensus on what the JSE is doing, Bureau of Economic Research in terms of the economy, and then SARS in terms of actual granular data in terms of sectors, provinces, and stuff like that.
Okay. No, great stuff. That's very practical, and I'm sure find your own sources too, I suppose, you know, sort of, but depending on your clients and the industry that you're in.
Yeah, Google's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. So keep your eyes open all the time. I suppose that's part of our jobs as business advisors, is to be on behalf of our clients, also be open to the information that is becoming available.
Yeah.
But Tyronne, you need to go into the chat, and I know you can't present and look at the chat, but there's some questions for you that we can come back later. And guys, please post your questions that you want to have discussed in the Q&A, so that we can come to them, not in the chat. It will get lost in the chat. So we're lucky. Precious was rushing to get to the right spot so that she could have proper internet to be presenting to us today what she has to offer, a lifetime of learning in working with small businesses around finance. So, I mean, there's lots to learn from her. But before we get to that, if you can, we are going to use the text chat, by the way, now for doing the following. If you can answer this question: what are the main challenges you face in helping your clients to use financial information in their decision making? So have a look there. It's on screen too, the question. Use the chat box, the text chat, and if you can indicate what the main challenges you are facing when trying to help your clients to use financial information. What are the problems that you encounter when guiding them in a discussion around financial information and using financial information to understand their businesses better? We can come to many of those things. So as you type that, we are going to continue getting Precious in. So Precious, if you can switch on your camera and your sound, then I can introduce you so long. But I'm keeping my eye on the text chat too. So Terence, for instance, is saying having access to useful information. So there's information, but it's not always useful or accurate. That's a big challenge. And Rick is saying the main problem is that people are not literate in financial terms, understanding to keep books. And Daryl is saying some clients feel they do not need the info to give to you. Okay, so they kind of try to keep the information away from you, hiding it from you. Brian is saying lack of financial literacy is the first major challenge. The second challenge is the separation of personal and business expenses. Okay, so in very small businesses, Precious, you would agree, separation of financial for business and for private is perhaps a big challenge. And then Ricardo is saying quality and accuracy of records. And please type in there so it keeps us on our toes. We'll come back to these things as we go along now. So Precious, if I can introduce you. Precious I know for quite a while because she's so active in the small business field, supporting, really being out there for small businesses. I've published books on this topic, is always doing training with young people, with older people. I think, Precious, are you counting how many people you've trained in the past 5 years?
Sure. We've just added about 350 for this year. So yeah.
Okay, times five.
They're not even updating. No, it's 1,000 now. I think that the team was saying we're on 2,700.
Okay, but you are a chartered accountant.
So yeah.
Does that count too? To be a chartered accountant?
With everything that's going on in our profession, I'm not too sure anymore.
Okay, but if I think of you, I think of a facilitator and the educator before I think of you as a numbers person.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So GID Consulting, what kind of work do you do?
So I teach entrepreneurs how to actually understand the finances, but also how to integrate finance to other business functions so that they do not see finance in isolation. As it was explained earlier, that sales, income, expenses is a function of activities. It's because we have made decisions as entrepreneurs that led us. So when we are looking at financial information, it's almost like a past event, but we then need to use that past information to then make an informed decisions. So that is what I do for a living. And I then write books and also create content in solving those problems that entrepreneurs have.
Okay, and today you're going to focus on how we as business advisors can actually use financial information to help our clients. Are you there? Precious? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask Carl, you've got nice slides I saw, so we're going to ask Carl to put up the slides for us, and if you can then lead the way.
So I thought I will just start with, I think as business advisors, we need just to sit back and say what exactly is going on first in terms of how does the finance world really work. I think sometimes we also try to convert our clients, entrepreneurs, to understand bookkeeping. It's almost like we're taking the blood test analysis that has been done at the lab and you're trying to give it to the entrepreneurs. Honestly, our role as business advisors is to help the entrepreneur understand how to take the information at the microeconomics, i.e. at the world view, at the country view, and at the industry view, and then be able to consume that information to make an informed decision. But it's also then linked on, based on that worldview or that generic understanding of business and economics, you then say, how then do I invest? How then do I build up my return on investment, which is now corporate finance? And last one, how do I finance this investment? And financial management is a day-to-day running. So the first layer of the cycle is basically about, that is where the entrepreneur actually exist and make decision. Financial management is just a day-to-day. As a business advisor, you should be helping them to make decision on those first three layers. The final part, which is accounting is just about summarizing the transaction and the decisions. And most entrepreneurs should only just understand a few things on that, and then we'll move to the next slide. But bookkeeping is about, exactly as I said, it's almost like lab. So if then we use that understanding of what reside within finance, we can then say that the main purpose of actually even doing the financial information is to make sure we evaluate the performance and the position. But financial information also provides results of the business. Actually, it's one of the very few agreed in general in business, that is how we measure the performance of how that business has actually performed. And the purpose why we want to make sure that we are making an informed decision in future on those issues. But we can also be able to see areas of risk for a business. And those things could also include about operations, selling the business, but also about how the utilization of assets and debt. It's amazing when I was looking at the pool question that the business advisors are not using asset utilization. And I'm of a view that most businesses that I've looked at the financial statements for, they are overcapitalized, which means they have actually put too much asset on the books, but those assets are not being fully occupied or utilized to generate the revenues. But also, as I said, it's about checking all the business activities and the functions to make sure that that business is actually running. So then generally, the financial information on the financial statement is presented in terms of financial statements, which will include income statement, focusing on the performance, and then balance sheet, focusing on the positioning, then the cash flow. Half of the time I've reviewed financial statement that even the cash flow does not balance. While cash flow is complex to understand for entrepreneurs, however, just get someone to review it for you if you have done it, just to make sure that it's done correct, because it then makes you question if even the figures are actually correct when that cash flow statement is not actually balancing. We also have seen in other instances the notes not tying back to the financial statements. As an entrepreneur, you have signed these books. Just learn on how to read the financial statements, then reconcile back the notes, even though there is an accountant. Remember, you are a director. Your roles and responsibility, you are actually reporting. You're the one who's reporting. And obviously, it will have accounting policies and assumptions. Take a close look on aligning your accounting policies and assumptions to the industry norm. Earlier, it was mentioned that we need to look at what is happening in the GSE. So look at your leaders in your industry. What accounting policies are, how are they aligned to your own accounting policies? Because accounting policies basically are about how you want the reader reading the financial statement to know what assumptions and systems that you have put in place to manage the items that are on the financial statement. So that's the main purpose of financial information. May I have the next slide? Carol, the next slide, please. Thank you.
I saw Carol had a bit of a technical hitch there, but it's all sorted out now.
No, thank you. No, that's good. As I said earlier, the biggest challenges that we have found, I mean, I started my business as an auditing firm. Needless to say that there was nothing to audit. When there was something to audit, you will disqualify because the information that was provided was not credible and it was not supported by source documents. So what we have found with financial information is that the clients, which is the directors and the owners, do not link their decisions to financials. They see financial statements not as a summary of their decisions. But also, because we're operating in an environment where the level of literacy is so low, then the signing off also means is not actually looked at. The information that we have found most of the time is not reliable, and because it's in an environment where there is no controls. And the last part we have found has been just in generally, management accounts are not prepared by management to make decisions, but they're more for an accountants, for external users, which then means we need to start actually unpacking the financial information, especially the monthly reports, to make sure that it's a management tool to manage performance and making sure that we're actually running. So therefore, information ends up not being useful. Now, your role as an advisor is to keep in mind that if these are the challenges you have, it might just mean your advice is based on incorrect information. So, and then for the next slide, please. So for you to be able to deal with that, you will need to assist your client in making sure that they do understand that the financial information is just a summary of their decisions. They're the one who have done those transactions. The accountant has just summarized. Therefore, they need to understand how that summary is actually going to then be presented, but also help them to set up systems and processes on how to keep records. As I had just shared my experience, is that when I went to do auditing, or even when I was doing just an independent review, the source document, the processes were not in place, to a point that I actually ended up writing a book which deals with what are the documents that you need to keep in terms of the legislation and compliance, and how long you need to keep those documents for, and also what is the purpose for those documents. And we even have a checklist that the entrepreneurs can actually use, your client can use, to help them to actually make sure they are making sure that the admin is right. I also think we need to also make sure that we transfer the ownership and accountability of these reports. As I've said, it's not just about signing your name, but it's also really taking accountability and owning to the results of that. Reading financial statement cannot be for the accountants, it needs to be for them, but we need to link their decision, as I said earlier, to how then this will help them to make better decisions going forward. So the most important items within the financial information that we can actually help our clients to pay attention to, one is the income when you're looking at the income statement on performance. But within that income, generally we say, take at least an average of 60% sales. That whatever that contribute more than 60% of sales, you need to analyze that, which might actually be maybe the top 3 best sellers of your products. And then you will have the top 5 expenses. In other businesses, it might actually be the top 3, depending what's the total average expenses that you have within your line items. Analyzing those, and I saw that the tool that we were talking about, the SMA Snapshot, does actually give you that. So already you have a tool that helps you to just zoom into those. Because if you really think about it, when you see that your top bestsellers are not going as smooth, you can then be able to inform your marketing team, your sales things that you're working on, including the promotion and advertising, to then improve those. But you can also be able to start asking yourself, on my bestsellers, how much cost, what's the direct cost, for you to be very clear what exactly is contributing to your gross profit margins. The second part within the financial statements will be the balance sheet, which we call it financial positioning. Within that, you mainly focusing on asset, and you also will look at debt. But within the asset, I saw on the pool again, cash flow projection is not one of the key things that you are looking at. That is the key, because that is going to tell you whether the client is going to be able to pay the bills. That is very important. I think working capital is important, but link that to the cash flow is very important, because most businesses die because of cash flow. Debtors and stock and age analysis, again, I saw on the poll, that was not one of the things we look at. Please, business advisors, remember, if your client does not pay attention to credit controls, collecting the money and managing the terms and conditions, which means they will also struggle with cash flow. If they're not managing the stock, they are not monitoring the stock age analysis, they will also not even see when the stock is actually missing and getting stolen. It will only be when they are being audited, or maybe someone is actually preparing the accounts. Most of the time, because most of our clients outsource the accounts, they outsource the financial reporting, i.e. the accounting, you find that the stock is not even on the books. So you then have to start looking at what controls does your client have, what within their cost of sales, do they have stock that they are buying? How are they keeping the stock? Because the stock drives the service to the customer, but also making sure that there's a lead time. The second last item within the financial position will be looking at a commitment obligation. How much am I supposed to be paying? When am I going to be paying? And that can be long-term or short-term. But also paying attention to your suppliers' age analysis, because those are your trade creditors. Those are the suppliers that are going to help your clients to be able to pay. Maybe you might actually need to advise them on saying, you know what, you're sitting on 60 days and 90 days here. Go back to your suppliers and tell them, and this is maybe how you should be managing this, and consider also asking yourself if they're going to give you the stock next time if you're not paying them on time. So those are the things, because if those relationships are not managed, then that business might actually not make it, because next time the supplier is going to want a cash. Next slide, please. So as a business advisor also, you're going to start looking, as I said, once you have your top 3 sales items, and start looking at the growth rate for each product, for each service, and compare it with what is happening in the world, in the trading. Look at the gross profit margins. As I said, asset, you have to look at the usage of the asset, because assets generate revenues. Assets generate value to the business. So, and current ratio is also important, because you are looking at, can I be able to actually pay for my debt within the next 12 months? Asset ratio. But keep in mind that all these ratios are past tense. They are not actually the projections of the future. The projections of the future will be based on your sales projection, will be based on what you are planning to do, but informed by the past. Liquidity and solvency ratio, those are also important, because they tell you which areas maybe you need to renegotiate the terms and conditions.
So,
Next slide. I think I'm on.
Before we go away from that slide, if you work with a business owner that was adverse to looking at financial information, and you start introducing a ratio such as the current ratio or the asset ratio, do you find that over time they find to see the value? They see the value in that and in monitoring that, and then perhaps on a monthly basis looking at that?
So amazingly, one of the reasons why I left the industry of auditing and accounting was that I felt like I was analyzing a dead person already. It's too late. But on the clients that I work closely with, they see a huge value. I think in another client recently, I started implementing the stock management. They are a service company. They do maintenance on BP garages and stuff. And they started also appreciating the efficiency of managing the stock, because what they used to do, they used to order the stock as they use, but they didn't see that they were losing time by not keeping a minimum stock of normal items, because they didn't even know what were the normal items that they use all the time, for them to be able to buy the stock and keep it in the cars for the technicians. So so by really looking at how well am I managing my stock, help you also to improve your efficiency. We have saved that business 3 hours, and 3 hours average of the time of the technician going back and forth. So they do appreciate it, but it takes a while for them to figure out how this works. I think the most of the time that we have found also is that sometimes when they see numbers, they just like, no, me and numbers. You are not, as a business owner, you are not supposed to necessarily to just understand the numbers, but you're supposed to make sense of the numbers so that you are able to advise the clients accordingly. But the clients must be advised based on the real information that is reliable.
Yeah. No, okay, thank you very much, Precious. I think we can sometimes, as non-accountants, discard the importance of statistics too. So each of us need to guide in terms of our own personal preferences and finding the right tools that help our clients best. And I think that's an important thing for all of us as business advisors, is to step into the shoes of our clients, and they may interact with information differently, so that when we engage with them around the information that we have, that we do it from the perspective of theirs as opposed to our preferred way. So we need to be a bit of a chameleon. We can be a comedian too, perhaps a comic chameleon, adjusting to where our clients are at. So I was wondering, in terms of accurate record keeping specifically, because that's a question. In fact, Eku Chukwu asked about accurate, he works in the agricultural sector, and he asked about how he can help his clients to become more accurate in the record keeping. So I'm going to pose that question to you, Precious. And by the way, we are shifting over to our questions that people have posed. If you do have a question, please do so in the Q&A. Post your question there so that we can address them. We're fast running out of time, so we will try to keep it snippy in the answers too. Before we move over to our friends in KZN and to hear news from what is happening in the province there around IBASA and how members can participate in activities, not only there, but also other provinces. So please post your questions in the Q&A box if you have any more, so that we can address them. And then I'll pose the first one to Precious. So can I ask that, Tyronne, if you can also perhaps switch your camera on, then we can Brian, if you want to participate. Brian,
One
Andre.
second, Christoph, you said there was a question you got cut off about credible information.
Yes, so the question Ekichuku asks, he works in the agricultural sector, and he says specifically with his clients, accurate record keeping is a big challenge. So what are the practical, very basic practical things that you can advise him that he can start doing with his clients to improve the accuracy of record keeping?
May I start?
Please.
So the first part is to help their client to actually start making the habit. So on their diary, they should actually be recording how much money did I make today, how much money did I spend. And then every week they get I will make my example, my daughter, I pay her R5 a week. She takes my handbag and goes to the car. She's 7 years old, and she picks up all the slip and put them away on the plastic bag. And on Monday, my PA will then summarize those slips. Yeah. If you find that you're struggling with that, consider having a business card that is already linked within your accounts, so that you will also remember how much, avoid using cash. So I also use that, especially when I'm traveling, and maybe sometimes we ladies, we change bags and so on. So start monitoring your personal behavior around, just start thinking of the slips as money, because at the end of the day, that is what they are. The last thing that I want to raise is that we have found that most people, they are actually not even conscious about their spending. As a result, they don't even notice when they are spending money. They're seeing the money coming in and money going out because they are not conscious about their spending. When you start recording it daily, you will begin to be conscious about the spending. So that will be one. Also create checklists for your administrator if you are not a one-man show, even for yourself, where you know there's routine things that I do to make sure that I keep up to date with the records. So weekly, monthly, and also annually. What documents do I need to collect? Making sure also that your systems you don't stay too long with the slip on the bag.
Precious.
Okay.
If I may interrupt you. So I'm thinking of an agricultural small upcoming farmer, which is the kind of guy that we're talking about here. So I got those tips. Those are really keen tips, so just have a space where you put the slips as a starting point. That's the most important starting point. Point two, what you said is, if you can, don't do cash transactions. Do it through the bank account. So these are two very practical tips that I think is executable. And the third one that I heard you say is help your client to change their habits and get into a cycle of doing things, so that each day they put away the slips, each week they do the following, each month. So I hope that Ekicheku is going to help you with your clients. There are also some other questions that we have to address. I'm not sure, Brian and Tyronne. Andre, by the way, if you want to come in, also IBASA's MD, if you want to switch on your camera, you can also participate in the discussion. Are there any other practical tips in terms of really, when a client that's setting out to start, or that's running a really kind of informal orientated business, just in terms of the basics of financial information gathering, to make that information useful to? So it's not information to be reporting to the receiver, it's information that's useful to us.
Sorry, Christoph, just to add to that, what we did, we quite tech heavy in terms of our application, and what we've discovered is everyone has one of these, and they're posting selfies all day on Facebook and whatever. And we use a lot of tech, and our clients, even grassroots, spaza shops, the ladies doing the weave, whatever, simple, basic, take a picture with your cell phone, and the documents are already and recorded, and you can throw away the slips, and you've got the thing, and it really tracks with our things like tips like Receipt Bank and various accounting programs allow to import immediately. So get them in the habit right from the start, and then it works incredibly well.
Great stuff, yeah. Brian or Andre, if you want to add in there.
I really enjoyed the session, especially around the fact that Precious backed up auditing, and I wish I had Precious as as a lecturer when I battled with my financial management. Precious, I really enjoy the way that you communicate finances, simple. So thank you so much for that. And then Tyronne, from my side, I like the tool. I don't know if it's an affordable tool that you've got, that the Snapshot. Could you perhaps tell us more about that?
I will ask Tyronne if you can in the chat paste information and where people can find it, you know, sort of if they want to pursue it with you.
Someone asked, I did pop something in the Q&A, so there's some details there.
I saw, yeah, but if you can put the details in the chat, then people can follow through that with a link or so. And Precious, if you want to do the same, if there's someone that want to bring you in to come and train their customers in financial management or so. So can we step off the Q&A or the last question? And Brian, maybe we can ask you to come into this too, and specifically Tyronne, because you spoke about other sources of information, but all of us, qualitative, there's one of the questions, in fact, it was, I can't remember who asked the question. So by the way, if you as a attendee of the webinar, click on the Q&A, you'll see that some of those questions have been answered in text. So we don't have to discuss all of the questions to answer them. There are some answers in the text that you'll find. But if we can focus on this one about qualitative information. So this is not the information that we capture into our accounting system, but other sources of financial orientated information that we may use. Indicators that there's a problem in the business to address that we don't find in the financial accounts. What are those?
So those will be conversion rate. And it will also be, so within marketing, there's something which we call it AIDA. Awareness, interest,
conversion rate is a quantitative statistic.
Yes.
The question is,
yes,
what?
I will get to it. I will get to it.
Which indicators? How can we see, without looking at figures, that there's issues in the business from a financial perspective?
I will link it to it. Just a second. 1 second. So within marketing, you will have something called AIDA. So which, as I said, attention, interest, decision, and desire. Sorry, and then an interest to buy. So you need to understand, how do I bring my customer to my sales funnel through my marketing, through my public relations, and my outreach, and how long do that time? So now you are measuring the time, how long that time will take, and how many, then relating to your sales. So when we analyze
question, they're going to give you a statistical answer. So I'm going to interrupt you again, because you talk about time. Time is immeasurable. So what are the indicators that we can pursue that's not
indicators is going to be the number of clients I'm going to need to reach, the number of people I need to speak to that will help me, that my target market I'll be talking to, and how long will I be able to talk to them to be able to one day then make a sale.
Okay, so let's settle on that. If you ask the CI a question, I'm going to give you a number.
It's still a number because it's customers, right?
Okay. So
and the other one is even the...
Sorry, no, so just to step off, we are running out of time, unfortunately, Precious. Otherwise, we could pursue this for a long time more.
No
but
problem.
I'm thinking of other things apart from information, you know, sort of, so that what can you see? So Brian, if I can ask you, so we're gonna shift into IBASA's news and so on this now, and then I want let's wrap up the topic of the day then by final comments. So I'm going to ask Tyronne and Precious to give us final comments on the topic of how to use financial information to identify problems with our clients. But Brian, you know, sort of, can you see that there are problems relating to finances in a business without looking at the accounts?
Yeah, I think, Christoph, well, firstly, greetings to all panelists and to attendees as well. I think, you know, financial literacy is a major issue in the country and globally. And I think, you know, we're obviously listening to Tyronne and Precious this morning, we're obviously talking about finances at a slightly higher level. And I think the importance is sometimes in order to move forward, we've got to take a step back. And when we take a step back, we need to then look at our typical customer base. And the key things is that, you know, people get into business to make a profit, but they don't know how to cost and they don't know how to manage money. That's at a very simple level. And I think that should be the starting point before we get into the slightly higher level stuff like asset test ratios, current ratios, etc. And whilst all of these things are very critical to any business, what we found is that a lot of our clients need the basic information and the basic education.
Yeah. Good. So I'm going to ask for final comments. I'll just give I can see there's a really big indicator about stress in a business, and that is the lines under the eyes of the owner. So we don't have to have financial accounts to see that, and the clear problems by observing that too. So sorry for cutting you short, Precious, there, but we are running out of time, and we need to talk about a few IBASA things still too. But
Can I mention the source where entrepreneurs?
Please?
Christoph, may I mention the source where entrepreneurs can find the qualitative and quantitative indicators? Please. They can go to something which is called balance scorecard. A balance scorecard methodology will give you, I think they have more than 300, and they cover both financial perspective, they cover organization, they cover all the four spectrum even on customers, for them to then build up on qualitative and quantitative. The last source also is relating to business advisors need to actually look at the MBA student information that is done by most MBA on entrepreneurship to try to make sure that they review their product and offering so that they can speak to what Brian is raising on, say, what exactly is going on the ground. Because yes, you're right, most of the time we're talking above our clients. The level of literacy is so bad. They are unable to grasp the basic things. But what I would like to say that finance is a behavior. It's more a behavior issue than anything else. And how we understand and know and handle money, we take ourselves to the boardroom. So if you have actually done badly in your own personal finances, you're more likely to do badly in business also, because you take yourself to the boardroom. And again, those who are struggling with compliance relating to keeping of records, I think we have also rushed registering businesses that should not be registered in the first place, because we have brought in delinquent directors who don't know what their roles and responsibilities are. I think those who are leaders, as yourself, business advisors, you need to take the ball back to the entrepreneurs and say, you said you are direct, to pick up the feet, and these are the tools. And as I said, we have written a book, we are running workshops, we are also doing quite a lot of work. Thank you so much for today. Thank you, IBASA.
Great. We need to thank you for the insights that you brought us, Precious. And Tyronne, if I can go over to you just for a last comment on our topic too, before we go over to IBASA.
Yeah, Christoph, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth earlier. The biggest source of information with helping an SME is the SME themselves, the entrepreneur. And a lot of what they'll just tell you in your first engagement will highlight exactly where the shortfalls are in their business, whether it's a personal issue that's affecting growth or whether it's a funding issue. It'll come up immediately in your first conversation. And then you really can then start to sort of hone in on what information you need then to start helping them. So yeah, if you understand your client, you'll understand their business.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Tyronne.
Thank you, guys.
I see you've shared a link there. Precious, if you want to share a link too, you can do so. We do ask, I see there you are, we are on the same page there. You're pasting the link. We do ask that you please give us some feedback on how the webinar is going, so that we can identify topics for the future and make some changes in terms of how we present the educational experience, the learning experience to you, to meet your needs. fit into your day and to make sure it's delivered in a practically useful way too. So please do click on that link in the chat, in the text chat, and just give us your quick feedback. It's just a few questions that will help us a lot. So Andre and Brian, if we can step over to IBASA. So first, as a business advisor, I must thank IBASA immensely for creating this platform and for offering it for free to everyone, to IBASA members and other business advisors that are not members yet. If I can put it that way. Because I know jointly we can come up with solutions for our clients. We can build a profession into something that has impact. So if I, on that note, can hand over to you. I'm not sure between Brian and Andre how you would want to deal with it. Maybe we can go to Andre first.
Hi, Christoph. This is really great. And I think this is what IBASA really want to achieve in the eco, or in this eco space. Today was really incredible for me to be able to share, or to be able to be part of a webinar where this type of information went out to advisors. And as I say, this is what we want to achieve from an IBASA perspective, so that we can grow our business advisors and give them the information that they require. And we would like to encourage you to become members of IBASA. It's a very simple process, as you can see here. Go to our website, or otherwise the easiest way is send me a mail, andre@ibasa.org.za, or send it to the admin@ibasa.org.za, and we can take it from there. But I think what I would also like to do is that after these webinars, that we send you some details regarding ourselves. And that is what we would like to achieve as well. So thank you once again for this. This was great.
You taking the lead in making this possible. So I think as attendees, we need to say thank you for making sure that we can keep our continuous education, our professional development up front. Of course, as IBASA members, if you are a member, you are required to attend to your professional development, and you can count this event as one of those contributing to your score for CPD. So you will receive an email if you've attended that says, here's the email, that's proof that you've attended, and please file that away so that when IBASA asks you to submit your proof of CPD, that you can do so and maintain your professional standing, your grading as a business advisor, as a principal business advisor, or as a certified business advisor. But let's move forward. So Brian is the chair of IBASA in KZN. So we do have provincial activities. It's not only a national body. There are provincial activities. And Brian, so what's been happening in KZN, and how can you inspire the rest of the country too to emulate the successes that you're having there?
Thank you, Christoph. And yes, compliments to your team and yourself on a very informative webinar today. So Christoph, just some feedback in terms of what we're doing in KZN and the approach that myself and my team have taken. So when we commenced, we launched the region in 2017, and we had our first breakfast event in 2018. And I then looked at the challenges of the province as a whole. And what we found was that there was a lack of awareness of IBASA's existence amongst practitioners and entrepreneurs. We also found there was a lack of member interaction. And the third priority challenge was lack of knowledge on the importance of having a business advisor or a coach or a mentor for emerging entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs. So having identified the challenges, we then put together a plan to sort of respond to the challenges. And the first challenge was the lack of awareness. And so what we did is I established a KZN chapter committee comprising of 6 capable, highly experienced and qualified individuals to take the chapter forward. And we've now planned 2 events for 2019, the one coming up on the 15th of August 2019 and the second on the 14th of November, which will allow our existing members and potential new members to experience what IBASA is all about and what we are trying to bring to the entrepreneurial space in KZN. In terms of lack of knowledge, we are planning to have workshops to actually educate entrepreneurs on why they need to have business advisors, coaches, or mentors when they commence with the business. And to pick up on what Tyronne and Precious were saying earlier, we have a challenge in the country and we have a global challenge in the financial literacy space. And just to comment on that, I think we need to understand that with our history and where we've come from, we've made great progress, but there's a huge amount of progress that still needs to happen. Now, in 2016, the Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation did a study amongst the G20 countries of the world, and they found that financial literacy levels across major countries in the world was at an all-time low. And as South Africans, we need to now pick up the pace. So we've commenced in a personal capacity and with my practice to start addressing this, where we've commenced with the school literacy, financial literacy program. We also plan to take that forward to a larger scale and see how we can make a difference. Because I think that if we can introduce financial literacy and entrepreneurship at a school level, at a high school level, then I think we can make an impact where we've got more educated entrepreneurs coming into the marketplace. So thank you very much. That's just a quick snapshot of what's happening in KZN.
No, thanks for that, Brian. If I can ask, those of us in the room that are IBASA members from KZN, can you just put up your hand? You can raise your hand. There's a icon that says raise my hand, and then we can just see who you are, and we can maybe even bring you in so we can say hello. Any of you? Sandile, I'm going to ask that you come into the room if you may. Anyone else from KZN? IBASA members? So if you want to come into the room, chat to us quickly. You'll have to switch on your camera, Addison. Anyone else from KZN that wants to just come into the room quickly? Addison's camera is off, but we can unmute you and then we can hear your voice. Hi, Addison. My experiment is failing. It would be great to see some faces of IBASA members in KZN that are on the webinar. Maybe next time we can warn you in advance to make sure your camera is working. But may I thank Precious. I know that Tyronne had to leave already, so we'll have to thank him in another way. Precious, thank you very much for bringing learning experience to us today. Thanks, IBASA, for making sure that we as business advisors can have free access to learning and that we can keep improving our ability to serve our clients. And I think that's very important for us to remember, that our job is to serve our clients and to make sure that they, as businesses grow, that they can create jobs, that they can contribute towards the economy, so that we all have a better and fruitful life here in our country. So next month we'll have another topic. I'm not sure, Carl, if you want to share that slide. We had a slide prepared on that, but I forgot to ask for it. So, but there's a topic next month which are now totally out of my mind. But we'll bring you something useful and insightful that you can apply in your work for next month too. So let's say Friday is the first day of the weekend, they say. So if you are planning something to relax, go do that. Connect with your loved ones and your family and rejuvenate for a week of good work next week. And then Carl has got the slide up for us. We'll leave that up for a moment so you can give us feedback on the feedback form and perhaps join us next month too. If you've registered, you'll receive the invite via email. So have a good Friday and a restful weekend to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christoph.